All right, let's get right into it. We're talking about a huge shift that is completely redefining the entire search landscape. And if you're a marketing leader, listen up, because this is basically your new playbook for, well, for what's coming next.
So let me just ask you something, and be honest. Is this a question that's maybe keeping you up at night? Are you looking at your dashboards and seeing that search traffic you worked so hard for just kind of flattening out, or worse, even dipping? If that's you, you are definitely not alone. And there's a really specific reason why it's happening.
Okay, first big number you need to wrap your head around, 25%. That's what Gartner is predicting. They're saying we're going to see a 25% drop in traffic from classic search engines by 2026. I mean, think about that. A quarter of your traffic just gone. This isn't some small adjustment, folks. This is a seismic shift.
And if that first number was the hook, here's the knockout punch. This really explains the why. A huge study from Semrush found that 86% of those high-intent queries, the ones that actually lead to sales, are now triggering AI-generated answers right there in the results. The game has just completely changed.
So that brings us to our first big point here. The old playbook, the one that got us all here, the one built on keywords and backlinks, it's being completely torn up and rewritten by large language models. We're talking about the AIs like ChatGPT that are powering this whole new way of searching.
Let's just break this down, make it super simple. In the old world, your entire job was to get someone to click a blue link. That was the goal. But in this new world, your job is to feed an AI the right information so it can create an answer. See the difference? Users aren't pulling information anymore. AI is pushing synthesized answers to them.
Okay, so if the game has changed, what's the new way to win? How do we adapt? Well, it's not just about ranking number one anymore. It's about a totally new, way more critical goal.
This, right here, this is your new mission statement. Forget about just climbing the ranks. Your new focus has to be becoming the source, the go-to authority that AI models cite when they answer a question about your industry. That's the whole ballgame.
And to get your brand woven into these AI answers, you gotta think differently. Your priorities have to shift. It's less about stuffing in keywords and more about things like structured data, which is really just organizing your content so machines can easily read it, and semantic clarity, which is just a fancy way of saying being super, super clear. The bottom line is, you have to make your information dead simple for an AI to understand and, most importantly, to trust.
All right, so the goal is clear. Become the source. But how do you actually do that? I mean, at scale. You can't have someone sitting there doing this manually, right? It's impossible. And that's where a very specific set of tools, all powered by APIs, becomes not just helpful, but absolutely essential.
Now look, I'm not going to read this entire list to you, but I do want to point out the different jobs these APIs do. Think of it in categories. You've got your creation tools, like the OpenAI API for helping you draft content. Then you've got your monitoring tools, like Brand24, to actually see when and where you're getting cited. And then you've got your authority tools, like Ahrefs, to understand the landscape and build those trust signals AIs are looking for. It's all about building a complete automated machine, a tech stack for this new era.
So, having the right tools is great, but a pile of tools without a plan is just, well, a pile of tools. You need a game plan. So let's walk through a really actionable 90-day roadmap that can take you from where you are now to actually getting cited by these AIs.
Phase 1, the first 20 days or so, this is all about the foundation. You wouldn't build a house on a shaky foundation, right? Same thing applies here with what we're calling LLM SEO. That's large language model optimization. This is all about getting your technical house in order.
So what does that look like? First, you map out the actual questions, the real prompts your customers are using. Then, a simple but crucial step, you update your site's robots.txt file. Think of this like putting out a giant welcome mat that says, hey, AI crawlers, come on in. And finally, you use APIs to automatically wrap all your content in that structured data we mentioned. It's called schema. It's basically a universal translator that makes your information perfectly legible for machine.
Okay, foundation's solid. Now it's time to execute. This middle phase, let's say days 15 to 55, is where the action happens. It's all about creating the right kind of content and then building up its credibility all over the web.
So you're generating drafts that are practically designed for an AI to pull out the key facts and figures. Then you work on authority.
And yeah, this means getting high-quality backlinks, but it also means getting other reputable sites to share or syndicate your information. Why? Because when an AI sees multiple trusted sources all saying the same thing and pointing back to you, that's a huge trust signal. And then you can take this whole process global using AI-powered translation APIs to scale up.
And that brings us to the final phase, measurement and momentum. This is about closing the loop, because this is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You absolutely have to measure your results and build a system to keep your momentum going.
So, in this phase, you set up monitoring for a new metric. It's called prompt share of voice. It basically answers the question, how often are we showing up in AI answers for our most important topics? You then pipe that data into your CRM to prove the ROI. And this is non-negotiable. You enforce a strict 90-day refresh cycle for your content. Why? Because stale data is the absolute fastest way to get completely ignored by an LLM.
Okay, a plan is great. A 90-day roadmap is great. But does this stuff actually work? Let's look at the real-world, tangible results you can expect when you actually put this kind of strategy into motion.
Here's a perfect example. We've got this fintech startup, and they had a huge problem. ChatGPT was confidently telling people their old, outdated interest rates. You can just imagine the customer confusion, the frustration, the support tickets piling up. So what did they do? They implemented this exact API-first strategy. They set up an API to feed their live rates directly to the web and injected the right schema to make sure it was understood. And the results? In just 2 weeks, they saw a 22% drop in those frustrated support tickets. And even better, a 14% lift in new leads coming directly from those now correct AI answers. That's a huge win.
And that's how you measure it. You have to move beyond old-school metrics like keyword rankings. The new KPIs are things like your prompt share of voice, the depth of your citations, are you a primary source or just mentioned, and, the big one, the actual sales pipeline that you can attribute to AI sources. This is how you connect this strategy directly to revenue.
All right, before we wrap up, let's quickly bust a couple of common myths I hear all the time. Myth number 1, I'll just install a schema plugin and I'm good to go. Nope, it doesn't work that way. Look, schema gets you in the door. It's the ticket to the game. But it's your authority and having other sites back you up that actually lets you win the game.
And myth number 2 is this idea that you can just throw away everything you've ever learned about SEO. Absolutely not. Please don't do that. This new approach, LLMO, is an extension of SEO. It's built right on top of those strong fundamentals. A technically sound website and a solid backlink profile are still and will continue to be absolutely critical for your success.
So I'm going to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. Right now, as you're listening to this, every single second, these generative AIs are answering millions of questions. And in many of those answers, they're citing their sources. So the only question that really matters for the future of your brand is a simple one. Are they citing you?